What? I gotta be on the headphones because Mama. I think I'm.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Freelancers Relief Fund Theater Designers Information Session webinar. Thank you for those who tuned in early and got a background glimpse of the backstage of our team putting together the webinar. Thank you for your patience during that technical glitch. My name is Josh Schmalley. I'm the Artistic and International Programs Associate here at Theater Communications Group, otherwise known as TCG. I use he, him gender pronouns, and I'm currently zooming in from the unceded lands of the Munsee, Lenape, and Wappinger nations, otherwise known as the Harlem neighborhood in New York City. I am a white cisgender man with dark brown hair peeking out from underneath a gray beanie with a brown pyramid mustache. I'm wearing eyeglasses, half tortoise patterned and half blue, and a dark green sweater. So today's call will last about an hour, and we'll pause from time to time to respond to your questions. To ask a question at any time, please use the chat box or the Q&A feature in Zoom. You should see it at the bottom of your screen. If you're experiencing any technical issues, please contact or chat Anne Charlone, who's our TCG manager of event productions, and they're on the call with us today. This webinar also has live captioning, so Anne will put instructions in the chat, and if you need to access those captions, please follow those instructions. And without further ado, I'll pass it to Amelia.
Hey, friends. I'm Amelia Cachapero. I'm TCG's Director of Artistic Programs, Artistic and International Programs, and I'm calling in from the unceded land of the Lenape people. I'm a brown-skinned Filipino woman with short black hair, black glasses, a denim shirt, and behind me is my blue wall. Josh and I are working together to administer the Freelancers Relief Fund and this round for theater designers. And it's a partnership between TCG and Wendy C. Goldberg at the front office. Wendy, do you want to come on screen and just say a quick hello?
Yes. Hold on, coming on. Actually, Josh has to put me on. Yeah. There we are. Okay, great. Hi, very nice to meet everybody. I'm Wendy Goldberg from the front office. Many of you might know me as also the artistic director at the O'Neill Theater Center, the National Playwrights Conference, and has been a freelance director for the last 20 years or so. Within the last 2 years, I founded a small company called The Front Office that specializes in the development of a lot of different crossover entertainment. And am so happy to be partnering with TCG on this very important initiative during this incredibly difficult time for all of us as theater artists. So that's who I am. Our company raised a lot of the money that we're going to be giving away, and we're really excited to be looking at all of the applications upcoming.
Great. Thanks so much, Wendy, for being such a great partner. And yes, doing a lot of the heavy lifting around the fundraising, which leads me to want to acknowledge the folks who are supporting this fund, and theater practitioners, audience members contributed, including some leadership level support from Rockstar Games, John Lee Beatty, Netflix, and Oren Squire. So thank you to everybody who donated. And there's more information on the TCG website, and we'll probably put it up on the screen or in the chat if you know of anybody who might want to donate to the fund. We'll try to get to as many questions as we can today, but please know that anytime you can email us, particularly Josh, and we'll put Josh's info in the chat and then also on a slide at the end so you'll know how to get a hold of him. And because this is a compressed time frame, we'll be sure to get back to you within 2 business days, if not sooner. Now, today's call is designed to provide you with an overview of the fund and to help you prepare your application. I talked to a lot of folks in the field and understand that many of you may be applying for funds for the first time. And so we're going to do our very best to demystify and clarify the process. And we've been working to make applying for the funds in this program as streamlined as possible with a quick turnaround. We'll talk about the time frame a little bit later, but just know that we recognize how dire the situation is for many folks, and we want to try to get that cash to you as soon as possible. Josh, I'm going to pass it over to you for a moment.
Thanks, Amelia. Again, I just wanted to kind of put out there that folks can ask questions at any point in the chat. But before we kind of jumped into everything, I did want to ask our participants on the call today, if this is your first time attending a TCG grants info session, could you put that in the chat or raise your hand, which I'm not sure if that's, okay, raise your hand, okay. I wasn't sure if that was in the webinar feature or not. I'm seeing 19 people, 20 people. About 22. Yeah, so I think most of you, this is your first time attending an info session, which is great. Glad to have new folks. And that's kind of the intent of these info sessions, is to give folks a chance to kind of ask questions and learn more about the application before it goes live. So we're all happy to have you here. you can go ahead and lower your hands. So we'll start off our presentation with learning more about TCG's work. Since so many of you this is your first grant info session, you may not be familiar with TCG. So we're going to start by talking about our new mission and values as it relates to this program. So take it away, Emilia.
Okay, so a little bit of background about TCG. You may not know actually that in 2021, next year, TCG is going to be celebrating our 60th anniversary. And we recently emerged from a year-long strategic planning process with a reframed mission. And that new mission is what's on the screen, to lead for a just and thriving theater ecology with a commitment to centering BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, and people of color in our programs, services, and partnerships. Another actually a little bit of info that we would love to know about you is if you're a TCG member, could you raise your hands or type that into the chat? Okay, a few folks. You could lower your hands. And how many of you are familiar with American Theater Magazine? Read the magazine. Ah, great, fabulous, good. We encourage you, thank you. You can lower your hands. A lot of people don't know actually that American Theater Magazine is part of TCG and one of our publications. As a service organization, TCG has a core membership of about 500 theaters and affiliate organizations nationwide. And that includes universities, funders, international and other not-for-profit organizations. And we've got over 12,000 individual members. And certainly you could read more about member benefits and our services on our website. And just a little bit about TCG's programs and services. The four main areas of the things that we do are networking and knowledge building, and that includes our conferences, events, also surveys and research that we do, pretty extensive research. A second bucket of programming is our grant making, like this program. We also have the Willa Kim Scholarship Program, specifically for costume designers. We've got professional development opportunities for leaders who we believe are in all areas of the field. We have a Rising Leaders of Color program, and we've had a lot of other professional development programs. Another bucket of TCG's work is around publishing, like American Theater. In American Theater Magazine, we very often have special issues and features. Last summer, the July-August issue focused on sound design. We've got a regular design notebook feature in the magazine, and there are interviews and other articles connected. And in our publications are also books. We're the largest not-for-profit publisher of dramatic books and scripts. And one of those books includes Ming-Cho Lee's A Life in Design, and you may have seen that book. It's a pretty gorgeous compilation of Ming's work. The last area of our programming is around national and global leadership and advocacy. So every year we partner with other art service organizations on the National Arts Advocacy Day in DC. And we're also the US Center for the International Theater Institute, ITI, which is a network of about 90 plus different centers all across the world, from China to Sudan to Cuba to Germany. So pretty much all over. So specifically with the Freelancers Relief Fund, and we're going to change the slide in just a sec here. There we go. This is the first round of this fund, and it's been collaboratively designed by TCG and the front office with input from a national group of designers and other theater professionals all through the period of the pandemic. We've been having conversations, both formal and informal, with theaters, with theater makers about the state of the field, what's going on, how people are able to move forward, what folks are thinking. So we really know that particularly the design area of the field has not really been touched by some of the other relief efforts that have been created by other funders and organizations. Now, the goal of this program is to award a limited number of rapid response grants of $1,000 each for theater designers, and that would be scenic, lighting, costume, sound, and projection designers. And those folks who have had theater employment within January 19th, so the beginning of last year, up until the start of the pandemic, March 2020. You know, as you know, the current COVID-19 pandemic is threatening the theater field's infrastructure and placing the most vulnerable freelancers like you all working in the theater field in an increasingly dire situation. Theaters across the country have had no choice, right, but to close productions mid-run and to cancel contracts for work that was supposed to take place this year and into next year. In all likelihood, the pause in theater activities is going to be continuing for the foreseeable future. And in the meantime, we feel that it's essential to create and provide relief efforts. This round of the program is focusing on theater designers. Support for freelancers in other disciplines will be considered, but it's based on the availability of additional funds down the road. So at this point, if you are not a theater designer, then you would not be eligible to apply. Now, we feel that all of TCG's programs are living, breathing beings that evolve over time, and based on feedback from participants in the program, folks in the field, all of that, we will make course adjustments whenever necessary. There's even the possibility that we may be making a course adjustment in the way this program is structured or the application process. It's highly unlikely, but if we receive a substantial amount of feedback from folks in the field about something, we want to be responsive and take that into account. Let's move on to the next slide around eligibility. Thank you. So this program defines theater in its broadest terms. So that includes dramatic theater, music theater, physical theater, moving object theater. So designers who are working in multidisciplinary ways are eligible, but you must demonstrate a strong theatrical through line in your work. If the bulk of your work is in film and television, then you would not necessarily be the most competitive for these funds. So as per the slide that you see here, freelance theater designers in one of two categories are eligible. So critical needs being the highest in the priority, folks that do not have access to employment in any sector, whose unemployment benefits may have been exhausted, if there's no other savings or support from family, who have not received other relief funds, right? Also eligible in this program are folks with a financial hardship. So theater freelancers, designers who could only meet essential life needs, which would be rent, housing, medicine, food. If you can't meet those essential life needs for 3 months or less, then you also would be eligible in this program. As I mentioned at the top, we are striving as much as we can to make this process as painless as possible. So there's not a long application, not a lot of financial documentation or information that you need to include, but there is some because we do have to make those determinations. So all applicants will need to confirm your status as a working theater professional and provide evidence of professional employment in theater for the period between January 2019 to March 2020. Then you will also need to provide documentation of some type of the theater work that was canceled and to show the loss of income since March the 1st. You would only need to submit one piece of documentation per canceled activity. And Josh, I believe, is going to be talking more specifically about these bits of documentation in a moment here. If we could go to the next slide around selection criteria. Thank you. As with all of our grant programs, we use an independent panel of theater professionals in a peer panel process. So TCG is not, or the front office, we are not doing all of the vetting and the screening. We will be involved in the process, but it will be largely done by the panel of theater professionals, and it will be folks who are knowledgeable specifically about costume design. We don't release their names at this point because we don't want them to be lobbied or questioned in any way. If you have questions about the program, certainly send that over to Josh. We will release the names of those who have been working on this project after the recipients have been announced. So in a few weeks, we'll be announcing that. So as I mentioned earlier, priority is going to be given to applicants with critical needs. And also we're committing to a minimum of 51% of the grants being awarded to BIPOC folks, Black, Indigenous people of color. It's been well documented in many places, including the New York Times and other national research organizations, that Black and Indigenous communities have been those hardest hit during the pandemic. And by extension, we know that artists and theater makers from those communities have been hardest hit. I'm going to pause here and check in with Josh and Anne to see if there are any questions so far.
I am opening the Q&A box and I'm not seeing anything. Anne, do you see anything in the chat or otherwise?
No questions come in. Oh, actually, there was just this second a question that came in the chat. I'll voice it. Are internationals eligible to apply?
It's not, I guess we'll talk about eligibility in a second, but it is specifically for folks who are able to work in this country and can prove that they are eligible to receive a W-9 tax form. So if that is the case, then you would be eligible. And if you have more specifics, then you could reach out to Josh and we can give you a more detailed answer. Anything else? Otherwise, maybe we'll just keep going. Are we good?
I think we have some questions coming in the Q&A.
Okay.
So I have a question asking that at least 50% of my work has been as an associate/assistant designer. Would I still be eligible?
Absolutely, absolutely. We're not making a distinction between associates, assistants, or the lead designer, but as long as you have been employed as a theater designer in some capacity, you would be eligible. Absolutely.
Another question, are recent graduates who are working part-time before the pandemic with plans and intentions to work full-time after graduation in May eligible?
I would say, frankly, that you may not be as competitive as some of the folks who have been showing that during that period of time, from June 2019 to March 2020, that their primary source of employment has been full-time, basically, as a theater designer. So it's a little bit of a gray area. But I can say that you may be less competitive.
Great. Another person on the topic of international asks, if their visa has just expired, but they are planning to renew once there is work again. Would you have any advice for that situation?
Yeah, I think that's a longer answer. So what you might want to do, I don't know, Josh, if we could see the name of the person, but for us to have a conversation offline, because I think there's a lot of nuances in there, and I would want to make sure that I get it right, and it's more of a conversation.
Got it. Great. I think that is the last question then.
Okay, and certainly we'll be, pausing here and there if more questions come to mind. Can we go over to the timeline slide, the next one? Okay. So I know that Josh is going to go over a lot of this in just a second, but I wanted to make sure you're all aware of the timeline, and certainly, again, our efforts to move this through as quickly as possible. The portal, application portal, will be open as of 2 p.m. Eastern on Monday, December 7th. One of the reasons that we're making it 2 p.m. Eastern is we're acknowledging that there are folks not only on the East Coast in New York, but all the way in Central Time, Mountain Time, Alaska, and Hawaii. And we wanted to open the application portal at a time that seemed reasonable for all. So maybe with that, I'm going to pass it over to Josh, who's going to talk a little bit about how to apply.
Great, thank you, Amelia. Just move my slide here. Okay, great. So I'm going to provide some more information on how to apply to the program. So after you're done watching this webinar today, I would say that for the rest of this week, carve out some time to review the program information that was shared on the call and also on our website. The link is right there on the slide. And we will also be recording this webinar, and we will put the recording on the website for you to view afterwards as well. And we'll also provide a link to view this slide deck. So both of those things will be a resource for you as you prepare for the application going live next week. Step 2 here is to visit that same webpage that's linked in number 1, starting Monday, next Monday at 2 p.m. EST. So the applications will be accepted on a rolling basis through Friday, December 11th, 5:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But it may, the portal may close early depending on the number of submissions that we receive. On our website, we say that once we receive 100 applications, the portal will close. But we may wait for larger numbers depending on who's applying, and to make sure that we're honoring our commitments to provide grants to 51% of BIPOC theater designers. But it really just depends. This is our first time doing this program, so we're not quite sure of the amount of applications we will receive. That being said, TCG and the front office definitely recommend submitting an application as soon as possible, just to ensure that you get your application in before the portal closes. And even if you begin an application before the application ends, you unfortunately will not be able to submit that application unless it was submitted. So on the application form, in addition to answering some basic personal and professional information, applicants will need to provide evidence of professional employment in the theater field during from January 2019 through March 2020. Amelia mentioned this earlier. This can be shown in a variety of ways. You can provide links to individual or theater websites for productions that you were employed. You can also upload resumes, playbills, or other material to the application form. You will have the option to upload the files, and we will ask that you please save the files as a Microsoft Word doc or a PDF, just to ensure that our readers will be able to open the files without any errors. If you have any questions about this, this evidence, please put it in the chat or the Q&A, and we can answer those, or you can email me. Point number 4 here is that in addition to the evidence of employment, we'll be asking applicants to provide documentation of the theater work cancellation and loss of income since March 1st of this year as a result of the pandemic. Only one piece of documentation is needed per canceled activity. Documentation may include copies of emails or correspondence regarding the cancellation from the theater or your employer. You can also provide contact information, and a phone number is definitely preferred. You can provide contact information for the host theater, the presenter, or the producer of the theater that you were employed at. You can also provide contact information for your agents. Our process from the TCG and the front office end is pretty condensed to a week to make sure that we can get these funds to you as quickly as possible. For contact information, we recommend giving us a phone number in case we do need to contact them, the host theater or the agent. And you can also provide an email, but we just want to try to get to them as quickly as possible. We do prefer over the contact information to receive, written evidence of the documentation when possible. And you will have the option to upload files, copies of emails, etc. And again, we ask that you save those as a PDF or a Word doc as possible. And the last point here is notification. So you will know either way if you got the grant or did not via email from TCG on Wednesday, December 16th. We ask that you don't inquire about the status of your application before Friday, December 18th, even though you should definitely receive it before Friday, December 18th. But just in case, there is a change in our process and we need to notify you after Wednesday, we're asking that you please refrain from sending me an email before that Friday. And that's just so that we're not, flooded with a lot of emails that we will be answering. So thank you for your patience in receiving a reply for that. If you do not have access to the internet, or someone you know who's applying to this grant is having trouble accessing the online form, there are alternative ways to apply. So please contact me if you're interested in that option. But we do prefer folks to submit via the online form. I think I'm gonna pause actually for questions because I think I saw some popping in. So let me pull up a Q&A, and Amelia, I may tap you to reply if that's okay.
Sure.
Okay, so someone asked about contracts, and I'm assuming that they're asking for if a contract can be evidence of a cancellation or employment.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to be absolutely clear, if you have a another piece of correspondence or email saying that that contract has been canceled, that's really the piece that we would need. So yeah, you might want to use the time between now and when the portal is open to start gathering some of that information. I know that it's common for designers to have a lot of jobs stacked up at the same time. So we, again, don't want to make this an onerous process for you, but we want to make sure that we have information so we can make our best decision.
A question, would an email from the theater to the applicant/designer that indicates the show is going to be canceled, delayed, suffice as proof of cancellation?
Absolutely, that's perfect. Yes.
We have another question asking, that this applicant does a large amount of corporate work as a lighting designer and has lost all of that work. So would that work, the corporate work, be considered as well?
I would say that you may not be as competitive as other folks who are working specifically with the design setting, because the corporate work would be in a different category, obviously, unless you're talking specifically about live industrials, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and you can always email me if you need further clarification, you want to get more in the nitty-gritty on that. I have another question from the chat about if we consider work postponed as loss of income.
Yeah, we would, because we definitely know that postponement is a little squishy in terms of when things can pick up again, depending on the region that you're in. And I know that some theaters have preferred to say postponed versus outright canceling a production. So absolutely, yes, that would be something that we would consider.
All right, I think I will move on then, and we'll return for more questions in a bit. Just move on to my next slide. Just for some tips on using the online application portal that TCG uses. Just worth noting that you will be required to log in to the application portal before beginning the application. So if you have never applied for a TCG grant before, as I'm assuming most of you have not, since my question at the beginning of the webinar. So you will need to enter an email address and a password. If you have applied to an application to a grant program before at TCG, you'll just need to enter the email and password that you use for that application. And if you forget your password, because we all have like a billion passwords now, you can just click forgot password and then the system will email you. And if you're having any issues, just send me an email. We do encourage folks to save their application. So there is a save and finish later button at the bottom of the application portal. Just double check and do not close out of your internet browser without clicking this button. At any time, you can save your work and return to the application by selecting this button, and then the system will email you with a link to return to your application. The application does have a timer that if you are idle, as in if you're not typing or you're not using your mouse for a set period of time, which is 60 minutes, it's conceivable that the application will close on you, and then you will lose any unsaved progress. So we recommend, again, that you save your application often, and also consider writing your answers to questions in a separate location. Although this application doesn't ask for a lot of written answers, it's always a good idea to save it in a different location just in case something happens with the form. For number 4 on the screen here, the portal does allow you to share applications. I'm not quite sure folks will want to use this for this program, but just so that you know, the portal allows you to send the application to others to view, and you can also allow other folks to edit the application if you desire that. Further instructions are provided on the actual application form when that launches on how to do that. Submission confirmation is important. You should receive an email from the grant system that you have successfully submitted an application. It may go to your spam, so please check that first before panicking that you're not getting the email. And it should be from mail@grantapplication.com. And Theater Communications Group or TCG should be in the subject. If you don't receive that email within an hour, just send me an email and I can double check for you that it has been successfully submitted. And then I will confirm that for you and that'll be your proof of submission. And I think with that, that is basically all I have. So I will double check the Q&A. So feel free to send further questions. And I think I will, oh yeah, just go to the next slide. This is my contact information, which Anne has put in the chat before, but my phone number is also here if you need to contact me about anything. Yeah. I think this is going good. Again, I'll just put here as we wait for any questions to come in. As Amelia said at the beginning of the call, the program is supported by donations from theater practitioners and audience members, including leadership level support from Rockstar Games, John Lee Beatty, Netflix, and Oren Squire. And donating to the fund is still possible. So if you have any folks who would like to donate, you can send them to Kevin Bitterman, TCG's Director of Institutional Advancement and Partnerships. And Kevin's email is right there.
It looks like there aren't any other questions at this point. I do encourage you sometimes, it is a lot of information to process and to absorb. And certainly, once you see the actual application, more questions will come then. We mainly wanted to do this info session so you could put some faces to our names and humanize the process and let you know that we really are here to try to serve you, to try to help you get through a time that's incredibly difficult right now. So hopefully you'll stay as safe and healthy as you possibly can, and hope this has been helpful to you to get a little bit more info about the program. So thanks, and keep an eye out for the opening of the portal next week. Thanks again to Wendy Goldberg and the front office for being our great partners on this, and thanks to Josh and Ann on the call. So we'll be recording this and putting this on our website in case you want to go back to it to reference. Thanks a lot, you all. Good luck in the process.
Thank you, everyone. And again, I put the link to the webpage with where the application will live on the screen.
I see a question that came in from Irina. I think it can be either. A project doesn't necessarily mean a production, but certainly any theater design related work that was canceled is something that we would consider and count as canceled and loss of income. So yeah. Okay.
Taking any last minute
I-
questions? I don't see any.
I think we're going to be good.
All right. Wait, did something just happen in the chat? Oh, thank you. Yeah, thank you all for attending, and we're happy to have you. And we look forward to seeing your applications.
And spread the word too, if you know of others who might be interested.
Have a great week, everyone.
You're welcome. We'll be signing off shortly.